Welcome. I'm Lauren Kimball from the ProfitSOURCE programs, and with me here today I have Dr. Larry Cora, our supply chain consultant. And we are going to be talking about beef on dairy, which we know is a big topic right now. So we know that Holstein steers historically have represented up to 16% of the fed kill, and we know that beef semen usage in dairy herds has increased substantially, and that these beef on dairy calves might replace up to 70% of that Holstein steer population. So before we get into the details of ProfitSOURCE, Dr. Cora, tell us a little bit about the general opportunity for beef on dairy right now, especially given the current market.
Well, I think the opportunity is tremendous for the dairy industry, and it really will probably, in essence, become a profit source point for them because it's totally changed the economic value of these calves. But what's really transpired in the beef industry is we've seen a tremendous reduction in the number of beef cows in the United States because of the drought conditions through so much of the country. What that means is that triggers higher prices basically for fed cattle, for calves, and the economic impact is going to be tremendous to the industry.
Beef on dairy cattle right now are very much being sold on a grid in many cases instead of cash basis. So what that means is they're not simply being sold on their live weight. It actually matters what is under the hide because it's calculated based on those carcass measurements. So it's really actually going to be important the quality of the beef on dairy animals, because now we're not just distinguishing between a straight Holstein and a black-hided calf, but between the black-hided calves themselves. So that's essentially the premise behind our ProfitSOURCE programs, is trying to help the dairymen capture this profit. We have an umbrella of programs under the general ProfitSOURCE label, and these encompass, again, not just the genetics, but also the calf care that would typically be given on a dairy and the traceability. So by capturing data on these beef on dairy calves at every point in the supply chain, from the dairy to the packer, on a continuing basis, we can actually learn more about the genetics that our sires are putting into this population and pivot to actually address the industry needs. So again, knowing that these are often being sold on a grid, what are we seeing right now with these grids as compared to the past?
Well, one of the things that's been interesting, and I would have speculated, Lauren, that when the pandemic hit, that we probably would have seen the prices or the demand for, say, lower quality beef go up because I thought people might shop down. In actual fact, the opposite happened. The consuming public really wanted quality, and all of a sudden we started seeing tremendous premiums for premium choice, for prime grades. And so the beef on dairy cross, that just fits perfectly because those cattle are very high quality cattle. They had the potential to bringing tremendous dollar premiums. And so the thing that makes it important is that in the whole genetic selection process, genetics is so important. And marbling, which is the key to quality, is so highly heritable. So these folks can make tremendous progress in a very short period of time.
Yes, and I've actually heard that recently from one of our feedlot partners, that to them, prime is the new choice. And again, from programs like CAB, they just can't get enough of those right now because the consumer demand is so, as you said, surprisingly high. And you're right, there's probably ways at the feedlot level that we can manage to address yield grade and weights on these animals, but marbling, as you said, again, has that very high heritability level, and that's certainly been a hallmark of our genetic lineup. Right now, our ProfitSOURCE sires are averaging in the top 10% of the Angus breed for marbling, and our other breeds are quite high as well. And the Angus are also within the top 5% of their respective breed for the Angus on Holstein and the Angus on Jersey crossbred bioeconomic indexes. So something we do commonly see is simply using the cheapest or most available beef sire on the dairy because it will throw that black-hided calf. But the ProfitSOURCE bulls do exist for a reason. We have, for example, a sire which was meant for the domestic market for maternal needs, right? So the calving ease was very strong and met the dairy's needs, but the carcass traits were not very strong. It was not a bull meant for a terminal market. And so if you'll see, our ProfitSOURCE sires are actually selected to address both. And we have seen this actually come through in some of our commercial carcass data. We had one of our very first lots hit 97% choice and prime, and over 75% actually hit that CAB mark. So what would you say about that in comparison to maybe commodity beef on dairy or native markets?
Well, the first word to come to mind would be wow. And really, in the beef industry right now, we sit at about 80 to 82% of the cattle hit choice and prime. And so when you're in that kind of range, those are going to bring uh, big extra dollars. And we'll talk a little more about some of the economic impacts at some point. But the price differential over the last 2 years, say premium choice versus choice, has really widened. And the demand, as you said, prime has really become the new choice in terms of the consuming public. And the industry really can't get enough of that. Used to be about 8 or 9%. Now they're really looking at how high can we go as an industry. And the beef on dairy crosses are going to contribute to that population.
Something interesting about ProfitSOURCE is that we aren't just the genetics, but we're also the calf care and the traceability. And the traceability in terms of our partnerships with the dairies, the calf ranches, the feedlots, and so forth, is what is allowing us to collect data on these animals. So that's how we know how well those lots performed. So traceability is certainly allowing us to learn more about our genetics and be able to improve.
One of the things that's neat about the beef on dairy program is that it allows for traceability all the way from the time that calf is born through the whole beef supply chain, all the way to ultimately the consuming public. Traceability is very, very important, and that's the neat thing about ProfitSOURCE is it creates a program that is in place for all steps in terms of the supply chain. So I think that's a tremendous value, along with then being able to capture the genetics, which is where it all starts, and then the management of those calves from the time they hit the ground till all the way they go through a growing program, a feedlot program, and ultimately get to the consuming public. So it's a neat program, a tremendous opportunity for the industry.
And do you think we'll get to the point where a program calf is the norm?
Oh, absolutely. I think right now we're already starting to see at all levels when we're pricing these at the packing level, or anybody that's purchasing these ultimately to get them ready to go to the consuming public, is the question is, are they program cattle? And I'd say by all means, if you're going to get into this program, take advantage of being part of a program like ProfitSOURCE, because that's going to be the norm. That's going to be the economic advantage. And you need to be careful, because some of these non-program cattle are probably going to find a hard time finding a marketplace, or they'll find a market at the price that you really don't want. So program cattle is essential.
And it also allows us to address some of those trickier markets like the Jersey herds with some of our partner programs designed to create, for example, Wagyu Jersey crosses. We can give those dairymen a stable and elite market for those calves.
Well, the Jersey is an important part of the dairy industry. It always surprised me that they make up close to 10 to 12% of all dairy production, and we're also seeing some Jersey crosses. By taking a calf that virtually has zero value, a straight Jersey, and utilizing beef genetics, we can really change the value of that calf, both at birth, but as it goes through the whole supply chain, and make it a much more valuable contributing entity to really the whole beef supply.
Right, and likewise with embryo options as well to create a full beef animal. And do you see any future considerations given the steer-heifer spread?
That's a good point, because I think one of the things that we've seen recently, and it fits because of the cost of gains, the price of corn really is the driving piece, is that all of a sudden we've seen the spread between steers and heifers widening. That really creates opportunities for everything from sex semen, Lauren, usage at the dairy operations, beef operations. It also creates opportunities for embryo programs, and particularly the Jersey side of the industry. I've always felt the embryo program really fits there. So I think the whole area of what's gone on in the industry, the widening of the steer heifer spread, is something that producers at both the beef and dairy level should pay attention to. And I think we'll see much more utilization of the sex semen programs.
And our ProfitSOURCE male packs are available. They feature up to 3 bulls in 1 unit, and they are qualified to actually meet the requirements of our program. So they can be used within the context of one of our defined supply chains and still be able to create those steers that are needed in the market right now. That pretty much wraps it up for ProfitSOURCE. Again, it is your one-stop shop for genetics, calf care, and traceability to get you that guaranteed market access you need for your beef on dairy crosses.